All right, everyone. Welcome back to Words of the Wise. Today I have Chief Warner from Derry Township PD in Pennsylvania. He has 40 years experience in law enforcement. I actually just asked him how many years he has left, and he doesn't know. So he's still going 40 years strong, and I'm really excited to have him as a part of today's episode. So welcome, Chief Warner. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Of course. I was just talking to someone earlier, and it's really interesting because there's that joke that says, the two people who know like their exit date are cops and inmates. And so everyone I talk to usually has that date in mind of like, yep, it's like, 2 years and 10 days and 30 minutes, 10 seconds, all the way down, before I can walk out of here. But you are like, I don't know, like I still love it. I'm still going, like, obviously maybe kind of reaching towards the tail end, but you're still in it and don't really have that end date or that specific end date in mind yet.
Yeah. You see the light at the end of the tunnel, it's there. But like you said, I still enjoy coming into work. I still, feel the need to be able to lead people in our department, try to get them to the point where they are in leadership positions and get people to the place where they can take over when I decide to leave. So I know there's a lot of work to be done yet. I still have ideas. I still am learning myself every day that I come in. And so just trying to, I'll know when it's time. But just trying to get some of those things done that I'd like to get done and be able to leave it in the hands of people that are capable of doing that, and to be able to leave it in a better place than when I took over in a leadership spot.
I'm curious, in the context of leadership, what is the secret sauce, or what are the strategies that you've used to be able to have such a long and successful career that you still enjoy coming to? We know that the job is hard, and there's statistics that show that you don't really stay in leadership for very long. It's kind of a short stint, but as a leader, how do you take care of yourself?
Yeah. So I think it's learning, just continued education, whether it's listening to podcasts, whether it's reading material. And I was never a big reader growing up through my middle school and high school years. I didn't really start reading a lot until I got into leadership positions. And then I wanted to know as much as I could about leading, and kind of feeling out where I land as a leader, what my styles are, and just being able to use that information. So, just being able to find out how to lead best, how to use empathy, how to have that emotional IQ, and being able to lead across generations. I think that's a big part of things today is, we have multi-generational departments, and being able to kind of figure out what works best with different generations, and kind of tailoring what you do to be able to get through and communicate with those different generations.
I really appreciate that sentiment of, longevity being influenced by growth and development, and, always being a learner and trying to improve your skills. Because I do think that a lot of times, at least in my life, in my experience, and I don't know if you can relate to this, but the times where I felt so burnt out and like when I didn't want to do things anymore is when I felt really kind kind of stuck or complacent. Like I felt like I had stopped learning and growing in whatever position I was in. And that's when things started to feel that way. But anytime I was striving for something bigger, better, greater, and trying to be a better version of myself or learn different skill sets, like that was when I had the most like excitement and motivation to keep going. And all of those things that you said are really difficult. They're trainable. Obviously there are things that are possible, but it's difficult to learn how to have empathy, like true empathy for people if maybe you aren't an empathetic person. Emotional intelligence is something that everyone is talking about right now. Like, how do you teach that? Especially if someone maybe doesn't have those lived experiences yet. A younger officer, how do you teach emotional intelligence if they haven't had those life experiences or those work experiences yet? And then being able to meet people where they are and adapt your training methods to different learning styles and different generations. All those are really difficult, doable, but difficult. And so I like that idea of like striving to be better and continuing to, learn and develop different skill sets.
Yeah. I think the first and foremost thing is to realize it's something that can be learned. I think people get into a leadership position and they know of it as doing things a certain way that you've been doing it that way for years and years and years and decades, and that's how leadership is kind of relayed to them. So I think realizing that you can learn these new methods, new techniques, how to communicate. Those are things that can be learned. The emotional IQ can be learned. I think that's kind of the first step. Is people think that, okay, well, I'm a certain way. That's how I'm going to lead. And, people can either take it or leave it. And, we'll just carry on in that method. And I think realizing that it may not be the best way. It may not be that bad. And you might be able to lead fairly well. But as we get younger people into the profession, I think it's incumbent upon us to be able to realize that what we were able to do with an older generation is not going to work for the younger generations. And just realizing that and coming to grips with that. And going outside of the box as far as learning those type of things. I listen and I read a lot of leadership material from people that are within our profession in law enforcement. But then I also go outside of that, go into business, different people that have leadership experience, but in a different profession, in a different venue. Being able to learn from them as well. I can't box myself in and just think that just by listening to police leaders that I'm going to be able to perform the best I can and be able to be the leader that is needed for all types of different people. And so I think just opening up that idea of, yes, emotional intelligence, the leadership ability to lead different generations is something that can be learned. It's not something that, okay, I might not be that great at it right now. And just kind of leaving it at that and not pursuing, how can I get better at this? I think that's the first stumbling block to get over. And once you get over that and really are intentional about it, and whatever you're learning, trying to apply those, for lack of better terms, techniques, trying to apply those is really key to being able to further yourself as a leader.
I agree. And, I've said this before, but I truly believe it. Having a learner, like a learner mindset, but also being teachable is, to me, I think, a superpower. Like if you can like walk into a space and understand that you don't know everything, and then also be willing to learn and to consider other ways of doing things that might be better or they might not. But having that like mindset of like, I am teachable, I have a learner growth mindset, I think is huge. And no one likes to suck at anything. No one likes to start over from like square one. Like that's one thing I learned. Like it's hard to learn new things. And so I totally get it. And there is a sense of like humbleness that has to like enter into the room of like realizing that like you do know a lot. Like everyone who I talk to, like anyone who's going to be like at the top of an organization or at the top of their game, you have a lot of life experience. You know a lot. You're great at what you do. But having that ability to be like, how can I be better? I think is a superpower, and it's something to strive for sure. I actually had a conversation with someone recently, and I haven't done it yet, but they recommended, it's totally on topic, but they recommended a podcast called The Founder. Have you heard of this?
I don't know if I've heard that one.
Yeah. And I'm going to start listening to it because they were also really into leadership. And these were all stories of different founders throughout our history and their mindset and what they did. So they have like the Michelin tire guys, like the Dyson, or, different like really, really successful leaders and companies and like the things that they did. And so I'm really looking forward to hopping into that because I think it's to your point. How can you understand that you can learn from everybody? It doesn't have to just be someone within your specific industry. You can learn from, I think you can learn from quite literally anybody. You can learn from the homeless person on the street, and you can also learn from a CEO of a huge company. So maybe that's something that you'll like to dive into. I'm going to do it. I'm going to look into it too. I didn't have the chance because I kind of went off on like a side shoot there, but I want to give you the opportunity to give a little bit of your background.
Okay.
It's been a long time that you've been in this law enforcement career, and maybe give us some insight. How did you get started? I know you started really young, and maybe what were some of your achievements and things that you accomplished over the last 40 years?
Yeah. So, Dairy Township, for anybody that doesn't know, is Hershey, Pennsylvania. We encompass the unincorporated town of Hershey, and then the surrounding area. The township's about 26 square miles. So, I grew up in this town, in this area, and went to high school here, and just grew up in this area. I live kind of next door to Hershey now. But I've always either worked or lived in Dairy Township my entire life. So, getting into law enforcement, I don't know if I ever really thought about it growing up, and even through my high school years. I talked to people that I went to high school with, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we knew you were going to be a cop."
Really?
I'm like, "Really? I never really thought about it until." Right before I decided to go to the academy in Pennsylvania. You can go to the academy pre-service, get your certification, and then try to get hired somewhere. So it's not necessarily you have to get hired by a department and then they put you through the academy. So I had about a half a semester of medical lab technology under my belt, and I was just like, you know what? This is not for me. This is not what I want to do. So I kind of dropped all those classes, and I was working a security job and had interacted with the officers from this department at the time. And I was like, you know what? I think that might be something I want to do. I wasn't really sure about it, but I kind of almost kind of like guided towards it. And so I paid for the academy and got in. And as soon as I got into the academy and started going through some of the classes, I just knew this is what I wanted to do. There was just no second thought about it. I didn't have that thing like I had with the college route. And I was still young. I was 19. But as soon as I started getting into some of the stuff, there was no doubt this is what I wanted to do. So yeah, 19 years old, and I wouldn't recommend that these days. My prefrontal cortex was still developing, and I can't believe I was working on the job at 20 years old when I got out of the academy, because some of the stuff that you get into, I don't know if a 19, 20-year-old is really capable of handling some of those things, but I've made it this far. So yeah, I had a lot of good officers to learn from. I started out in a small department, part-time first, and then went to a department full-time. There were three of us. So when we weren't working, the state police were on call for that jurisdiction. It was a jurisdiction next door to Derry Township. And worked with a lot of good officers when I was there, and they kind of showed me the ropes, taught me what to do, what not to do. And it was a really good start to the career because you did a little bit of everything. You handled your own cases. I learned photography work, learned how to develop photography, photos, and so forth, which nobody knows what that is anymore. But you got to go hands-on with everything. So you worked a case from the initial all the way to the end and prosecution. So it gave me some really good experience. And then coming to Derry Township, then you were starting to work with other officers. You had different divisions, criminal investigative division, things like that. So while on patrol, you're basically the initial responding officer taking a call. And if there was anything that needed to be investigated, you were handing it over to a detective. So kind of thought that those initial couple of years helped me put together a good report. And that way a detective, when they got that case, could take it and run with it. Came to Derry Township in 1988, and soon got into crash reconstruction. So took all the courses, made it through, got my reconstructionist certification, and was doing traffic crash reconstruction, traffic studies, things like that, anything that involved traffic safety. And then in 1991, had the opportunity to get on the canine unit. So I've always been able to work with dogs and be able to kind of train and communicate with them well. So got that opportunity and worked three different patrol narcotics dogs over a period of 20 years. Wow. So did that for a long time. And my second dog actually saved my life, but it was in an off-duty capacity. Had to do something with a tornado and things like that. So really enjoyed those days in canine. If I could get the department to let me train a dog to carry paperwork back and forth to the office, maybe go get my coffee, things like that. I'd probably do that now. I do get out on the road occasionally, but it's mostly office work now. But 2012, I took a promotion to lieutenant. Didn't take the normal route of being promoted as sergeant first, but jumped right to lieutenant. Retired my last canine at that time, and was lieutenant in charge of the operations division, the patrol division. Did that for a few years, and then in 2016 was selected to be promoted to chief of police. If you would have talked to me back 20 years or so ago, and are you wanting to be promoted to lieutenant, wanting to be promoted to chief, and I don't think it was anything that I had expected. But I find myself very fortunate to be in this position and hopefully bring some good leadership to the people that I'm working for in our department. Couple other things. In 2008, I became a peer support officer within our department and within the peer support program that we have. When I took promotion to lieutenant and then chief, the number of people that would come up and talk to me about things kind of dropped off a little bit. You don't want to have too many officers don't want to talk to the chief about, issues they may be having, but I do offer peer support to other administrators and kind of bridge that gap. So they have somebody that they can talk to and they can bounce things off of. So feel very fortunate that I'm able to be that for my peers on the administrative level and be part of that program. And other than that, I don't think there's anything else.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot more to that.
Probably more that I forgot about.
Yeah, but a couple things I wanted to touch on. Like, one, I love that you were like, it was love at first sight. Like I knew, like, as soon as I got into this, like, this is what I want to do. And I think that as you're talking, what I'm realizing, and it just like hit me, when we look back on our lives and our careers and our accomplishments, we're able to sit here and talk about all the good stuff, right? Like you were sharing all these like really, really great, cool things that you got to do. And like, I can looking at your face and you can see like how proud of that you are, and you're talking about the various assignments and, working with your dog and, peer support and all the things. And you can tell that like you have loved this career. And I think that it's so important for us to be able to reflect and have a sense of gratitude and to recognize the really good things, because I would imagine that throughout the 40 years, there are also some really hard things and really tough things. And if we were to have a conversation right now and we were to just talk about all the hard things, it would be such a disservice for all the good things, and I think that it's important for us to be able to do that and to realize that like, wow, like what a cool life, what a cool career, and yes, it's not diminishing the hard stuff, but it's also being able to recognize the good stuff. And sometimes we get caught in those cycles, mentally of focusing on the negative rather than recognizing the positive.
Yeah. I mean, what are the numbers for the average amount of traumatic events that an officer sees over a 25-year career? It's somewhere around 200 or something like that. I can guarantee I've seen every bit of that and probably some more. And thinking about those, I can think of several that just like immediately pop into my head.
Yeah.
I definitely think about those once in a while, but I think I've always been a fairly positive person, and I try not to dwell on those type of things. I mean, they're always there. And I do think about those, or something will happen, or I'll smell something, or, it's immediately at the forefront of my mind. But I've had a lot of good things happen, family and my work. And I think those things kind of take over, and it may be just my personality. I don't know. But I know, a lot of good things, both on and off the job that have happened that are really great. And I think that's where I try to rest my head and, just be real grateful for those things happening and the friendships I've had and have, and all those different things happening, and a lot of them because of this job. Yeah. It's kind of what you make of it. And I feel real fortunate that I've been able to make those friendships and both within law enforcement and people that I meet during the job. There are people that I've met on calls, in interactions that I've actually formed friendships with. And I think it's important to be able to do that and just kind of grow that network to be able to rely upon.
I need to look this up again because, I want to be accurate with the things that I say, but we are like quite literally wired to like look for negative things. Like our brain, like it's something like it's definitely over 80%, but it's something like 80 to 90% of our thoughts are negative, and they're repetitive. And so we have to be able to kind of rewire our brain in some ways. And so having a sense of gratitude, and reminding ourselves of the good stuff is going to help with that. And one of the things that I've learned through this podcast, through other people, one in particular, but they call it PMA, and it's called positive mindset. And it's something that you can train yourself, and just remembering some of the good stuff. And I'm really guilty of this. And like my partners had to like check me sometimes, like where I'm like, this is always bad. And like, you never do this and you never do that. And he's like, wait, like, hold on. Like, here's an example of where it was good. And like, this did happen. Do you remember this? And I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. But our brain sometimes goes towards like all the things. And we have to sometimes take a step back and like have that moment of positive mindset or positive mental attitude, gratitude, and just remember some of the good stuff to try to like unwind the negativity. But I also would imagine, because you said that you've been in the peer support space now for a long time, and we were doing the math earlier because I originally had thought it was a decade, but it's been like 17 years that you've been involved in peer support. And I do want to talk about both angles of this, because you said from an executive level, being able to talk to your peers, and, have some sort of, peer support within leadership, but you also were involved with peer support before you were in leadership. And 17 years is a long time. I would imagine talking about stuff and learning the benefits of being able to talk about these things has been helpful for you. How did you get started in this 17 years ago? Because there are a lot of agencies out there that are still trying to get a peer support up and running today. So how did that all start?
Yeah. So our group is a regional group. So there's like 8 different departments that are part of this peer support network. And it actually started before I got into it. I want to say that was around 2002, 2003, I think is when our regional team actually got started. I got into it in 2008 because of what I experienced in 2004. So that off-duty incident that I'm talking about was a tornado that hit our neighborhood, and our house was actually destroyed down to the subfloor. And my wife and I and our 2 girls were at home at the time. We made it out alive, but it was definitely a very, very intense situation, and I think we all thought we were going to die that day. Shortly after that incident, one of the people that was involved with the peer program reached out to me. And even though at that time I was still processing things and wasn't ready to talk about anything, I remembered that. And in 2008, when I had the opportunity to apply to be a peer, I took that opportunity and ran with it, and made it through the vetting process, because our program has a pretty stringent vetting process for peers. Made it through that and became a peer And it's really something that I'm very proud of and very humbled that I have the opportunity to be able to talk to other officers, use the experiences that I've had on the job and off the job, to be able to just listen. That's what we do. We listen or refer. So we do a lot of training. I would say our peers average somewhere probably around 16 to 24 hours of training every year. State law requires that we have 8, but we go above and beyond that. And like I said, the vetting process is pretty intense. There are some officers that are recommended for the program that do not get selected. So we want to make sure that our peers are going to be able to do what they need to do and be able to listen to people, not necessarily have judgment, just be able to give them that space to talk, and then be able to refer when necessary, and refer them to professional services. So I may have gotten off topic a little bit, that's one of the reasons is my personal experiences of getting into that program, and just being able to provide another service for officers that are part of our departments, being able to give them that space. That's one of the most rewarding things. And we even go outside of our network. We've been involved in some incidents, doing the diffusings, the debriefings, and all the SISM work outside of our network, just because we have such a good system in place, and our program is probably one of the most professional ones in our area, and even in the state. Outside of the state police, I think our program is probably one of the best.
Yeah. 2002 is when this happened in your personal life. You said 2002, 2003.
That's when the peer program was started. 2004 is when
2004
the incident happened.
The incident. And then 2006. Oh, no, sorry, 2008.
2008. Yeah.
Okay. Everyone can tell I'm like really bad at math. So 2004 was when this incident happened, 2008. So what an important reminder to anyone who's listening that maybe in 2004 you weren't ready, right? You said that you were like, I don't know, I wasn't really ready to talk about it. And then you remembered that. And then now 4 years later, you're like, I want to be a part of that, because that impacted me. And I think that's an important reminder that just because someone maybe isn't ready now does not mean that they're not going to be ready later. And it's so important to continue to have those resources. So if and when they are ready and they want to take advantage or maybe even be a part of it, it's already there, it's available, and it's waiting for those people to come around. And so I really liked that you were like, yeah, maybe at that moment, I didn't really think I needed it or was ready for it, but eventually I was. And then eventually I wanted to help others in the way that helped me. And I think that's a really, really powerful statement. I really do want you to maybe talk a little bit about the vetting process and like, how do you know who is the right person or candidate for it? What are the qualities maybe that you're looking for? And you said listen and refer. And when you and I talked offline, one thing that I remember vividly was you're saying the importance of active listening. What does that look like in practice?
Yeah. So as far as the vetting process, that is part of it. Are you somebody that is going to be able to actively listen to somebody, and give them that space? You sit down with them, you're sitting in that space with them, but the focus is on their experience, what they want to talk about, being able to pull on that string and see if you can get them to release that information from themselves, and being able to kind of unpack and unload those things. So, are you a person that can do that? There are some people that they might listen for the initial 10 seconds, 15 seconds, but then they want to interject with personal experiences and things like that. And there's a time for that. But really, when you're sitting down with that person, it's all about them. And so being able to do that is a very important part of being a peer. We're looking for qualities of empathy. We're looking for qualities of non-judgment. Sometimes people will lead with their beliefs rather than their values. And we're looking, what are that person's values, not necessarily what their beliefs are. And are they able to put their beliefs aside and focus on those values? What are their core values? And if we look, a lot of us are going to have the same core values, but we might believe different things. So can they put those beliefs aside and just focus on, empathy and what the core values are, and kind of connect with that person over those core values? Those are kind of some of the things that we look at. I can't reveal everything because we don't want anybody to cheat at the test. But there are certain questions that are asked that, might reveal a lot about a person. And like I said, we've had people come in, they're recommended by somebody within the department or the chief or, somebody higher up. And they're like, hey, this guy is always talking to the officers. And, we really believe that the officers trust them. We think they'd make a really good peer. And they go through the vetting process, and there might be a couple of things that come out during that vetting process. It's like, you know what? I don't think they're going to make a real good peer. Can they, carry on a conversation with somebody? And, are they well liked? Yes, absolutely. No doubt. And they're a good person. It's just, there are certain things when it comes to being a peer that are critical, and the listening, the confidentiality. Those are some critical areas that we really try to reinforce. We take an oath when we become a peer to maintain that confidentiality. The only time it's broken is if a person says they're going to harm somebody else or they're going to harm themselves. Then obviously we need to get that person to some professional services, and we might not be able to keep that to ourselves. But everything else is kept within that confidentiality. In Pennsylvania, we actually have state law that protects that confidentiality. We're not compelled by the courts to reveal anything. So it's a very strict system that we hold our peers to be accountable. And the reason we do that is, as soon as you have somebody that acts outside those parameters, then that whole program is done.
Right.
So we have to be really strict with the people that we bring in as peers. I've seen programs that you can sign up online and you can be certified as a peer, but none of that vetting has taken place. And you can have somebody be certified as a peer and get into a program, and they sit down with somebody and they break one of those cardinal rules after the conversation or even during the conversation. And now you have lost trust in that program. So it's really important. We take it very seriously.
That's exactly what I wrote down is it takes an incredible amount of trust for people to, because we know it's not easy for people to like be vulnerable, to like go and talk to someone and say, like, here are the things that I'm struggling with, like, here are the things that impacted me. It takes a lot of courage and trust for someone to step forward and talk to someone about that. And you have someone who breaks that trust, and it's such a detriment to the people. And I think that you have to always focus on what is the end goal. What is the why? What is the why behind this? And it's to save lives, right? It's to help your people to get through hard times, and ultimately it's to save lives. And I think that you have to hold that really close to your chest, right? Like, you want to make sure that everything that you're doing is with that end goal in mind, and in keeping the integrity of the program.
Right. Yeah. And, I will give, and I know we had talked about this, I will give credit to our consultants and the people who originally formed our peer support program. They were people that they retired from the Pennsylvania State Police,
Yeah.
and they were directors within the member assistance program for the state police. So they already knew what it took to create a good program. They brought that to our municipal departments, and we created a program. So I think second to the state police, I think our program is probably the best in the state.
I love that. Are there any, obviously I know like everything is confidential, but are there any like moments where you really recognized the efficacy of the program, like where that this really did help to prolong someone's career or help to save someone's life? Is there any like moment where you were like, yes, this is what it's all about?
Yeah, I think we've had moments like that, where there has to deal with substance abuse, alcoholism, different things that are going on in a person's life. We've had stories where it didn't work as well, but I would say for the most part, we have seen those stories. And I think what it really, probably the most impactful thing that I have seen and heard about is peers, our peer support officers, when they're talking with a group of officers, whether they're doing a roll call training or something like that, they're explaining the program, and what the peers do and how this program works. And when they're doing that, having somebody in the class speak up and say, hey, listen, I know this program works because I've used it.
Yeah.
That's absolutely amazing. So we have seen that happen numerous times, and it really helps our program as far as the credibility of what we do. And then it also lets some of the newer officers know and some of the younger officers know, oh, hey, if so-and-so is saying it and he's got like 15 years on, this must be a good program and something that we can have our trust in.
Yeah, no, that's huge. I think I agree with you. That is a huge success metric. If someone is standing up and being like, I've been on the job for however long and I've used it and it's helped me. And
right.
Do you think that is the way to break stigma? Because we know that there's still, there's still a stigma to this thing and into wellness in general. And, maybe there still are people who don't want to speak up for whatever reason, whether that is trust or fear or, preconceived notions of whatever, I still think that there's a stigma associated. So do you think that that is the way to break stigma, or how do you think that we can move forward where eventually it just becomes the norm?
Yeah, I think there still is a little bit of a stigma. I think it's becoming less and less of an issue. younger generations are more apt to use a program like this and reach out, talk about things. And I don't know if it's, the education that they're getting in their younger years, and having having the student groups that they have in schools now, where groups of students can confide in each other and talk about things. And they kind of grew up in that system. So it's a little bit more normal for them to be able to use these services. We still have the older generations like me, where, for many years it was, just basically, hey, suck it up. We're going for beers after work, and, we'll talk about things. And of course, none of the conversation was really constructive. Yes, were you releasing some steam? Yeah. But as far as being able to unpack things and really kind of get experiences out, and being able to offload that kind of stuff, I don't think it really helped. But I think maybe some of the older generation officers maybe seeing that, hey, maybe this isn't such a bad thing. And it's just going to take a long time to get through that stigma. I think departments are definitely more open to it, and you don't have them. What was it? Talked to a couple of NYPD guys over the years, and they say, "Oh yeah, you say anything," and they put you in a rubber gun squad, and you're kind of labeled, and they might give you some administrative time, and it's really counterproductive to what you want to see happen. Yeah. And so I think things have changed. Do we still have some roadway to travel? Yeah. But I think it's slowly getting there. And I think things are getting better every day. It's got to, because this job has not gotten any easier. Yeah. Everybody's recording you now. I know in conversations, it was, if everybody was recording me, 20, 25 years ago, I would have been written up just about every day of the week. And, things are changing. The profession is changing. We're doing better at serving our communities. We're also doing better at being able to get officers the help that they need when they need it. So I see it's just getting better over the years, even though the job has become more difficult.
I agree with you. And, I definitely have not been in the space as long as you. I've only been in the space for 8 years, but even in the last 8 years, I've seen a lot of progress in the way of, forward movement and wellness. And I really believe that conversations can save lives. It's something that I really try to take with us into this podcast. That's the goal. Is I think the more we can talk about it, then the more normal it becomes, and the more individuals like yourself in leadership who make it normal and make it okay and talk about it, then the more normal it'll become over time. And I think you just don't know what you don't know too. I think that the choir practice or going to church or whatever, going to the bar, like the thing, I think that if you didn't know at that time, anything different, then it's hard to fault people who don't know, but as you start to have more awareness and more education, then it becomes more of a responsibility to start changing those things and trying to have more conversations about those things. And I agree with you. I think that things are changing for the better, and it'll take time, but I hope that through conversations like this, it becomes more normal. I did before we, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. As far as that, you don't know what you don't know. That was one of the things when I started in a peer program, is, going through all the training that we do. Our initial training, back then it was a week long. Now it's 2 weeks long. So going through all that training, one of the things that the consultants and the trainers, advise is, have any of you talked with a professional? And at that time I had not. And I'm like, I don't know, should I talk with a professional? What, do I really need to? And then I started thinking about it. How can I listen to somebody and, hear what they're talking about and so forth, and decide that I should refer them to somebody to talk to on more of a professional basis? How can I do that if I haven't done that myself?
Yeah.
And so now I do talk with somebody, and I tell people that, listen, if you don't have somebody that you can talk with, and especially somebody that is a professional, psychologist, counselor, therapist, we go through too much and we see too much. And to not have that soft landing space to be able to talk to somebody, it's not good. And now I can tell people that I do talk to somebody. I need to get some of this stuff out of that backpack that I'm carrying, of all the stuff that's built up. And I need to be able to unload some of that stuff and have somebody listen to me. So, it's one of the things that I didn't know, so like you said, you don't know what you don't know. But as soon as I was able to do that, now I can firsthand experience. I can tell somebody, like, listen, I'm listening to you. I'm hearing, but I really think you need to talk to somebody else. And being able to refer people. So,
yeah. I think that's a great point, and it gives you credibility. You have that authenticity, and I think about that all the time. If I'm going to be on this platform and I'm going to be talking about wellness and how you have to prioritize yourself, and you don't not have time, you do have time. It's just a prioritization of the time, and all the things that I don't want to say preach, but all the things that I say on here, and I'm not doing that. Like, I'm going to lose credibility so fast, because people are going to look at me and be like, okay, you're telling me to do this, but like, you're not doing it. So why should I do it if you're not going to do it? And so I think that's a great point. And I know we're kind of running short on time, but I did want to maybe ask you one last thing about it, because I think that in leadership, and what I've learned is that you, as chiefs, and executive level, are really good at taking care of other people. And sometimes you do forget to take care of yourself. And so how important do you think it is as a leader to prioritize wellness for yourself, to maybe have, a peer support team, to maybe have a talk therapist, or other things that you're doing to promote your own physical and mental wellness, and not forgetting about yourself, in the, hopes of taking care of everyone else underneath of you?
Yeah, it's extremely important. But like you said, hours in a day, everybody's saying, I wish I could have more hours in a day, but we have enough hours, and you're not going to get any more. Yeah. So prioritizing things, going for a walk every morning, that's my time to get some exercise in. Do a little free weights, that type of thing. Listen to my podcasts, do this type of thing. So I'm trying to mentally prepare and physically prepare myself. It's got to be intentional. And are you going to, once in a while, you're going to stray off course and maybe not walk for a day, maybe not walk for 2 days. But getting back on that cycle, getting things done and being intentional about it, it's discipline.
Yeah.
Nothing more, nothing less. It's discipline. So just being able to do that and realize that. I mean, if you realize that, if you come to grips with that, and then just start doing stuff, taking that first step and just start doing things. So I'm not perfect at it by far. I definitely have my faults, and I have my days where, you know what, I'm skipping this, and I can't talk myself out of it. But then the next day I'm like, nope, and let's get back into it.
Yeah.
So yeah, just trying to continue to do those things mentally and physically to be able to prepare yourself. It doesn't get any easier when you get older too. So
Well,
yeah.
I can relate to that. And I had my alarm go off at 4 o'clock this morning, and I had that thought, that little devil on your shoulder that was like, text your personal trainer and tell him you're sick. You can't do it. I'm not feeling good, and I was like, nope,
Get some more sleep.
I'm
Right?
going to pull myself out of bed. And it is the discipline, and it is important to give yourself grace. But I also think it's important to remember that like you are worth it. And in order for you to be the best version of yourself and to be able to take care of people around you, you have to take care of yourself, and your wellness is important, and you are worth that. And I do agree with you. It's like discipline over motivation, because motivation at 4 o'clock in the morning when that alarm is going off, I do not have the motivation. I do not want to do it. I am not a morning person. But I do have the discipline that I've developed over time, and I'm not perfect either. And giving yourself grace is important. But I think just remembering that like your wellness matters, like you matter. And it's so important that you take care of yourself so that you can, show up for other people. My last question for you is, what words of wisdom would you share with someone who's earlier in their career? Like if you could give your younger self advice, maybe something you wish you would have known earlier, or something that's helped you along the way.
Yeah. I mean, I was, I've always tried to do this, but I think earlier on in the career, I was too focused on the job itself, and fighting crime and just hooking everybody up that you could, getting everybody for every single traffic violation and so forth, and they're all out there. It's, I think, treating people with respect, which is always something that I've tried to do. But in my earlier years, I think it was taking things too personally. Somebody ran a red light, and that was an affront to me as a law enforcement officer, as a police officer. It was an affront to me that they ran that red light, and that they think a certain way, or they're doing things that are not in line with my values or beliefs, and they broke the law, and I took it as a personal affront. And it's like, hey, people are going to be people. You just got to realize that, and just do your job, but realize that it's no excuse not to treat somebody with respect.
Yeah.
And in my later years, I realized that, and obviously you want to maintain control of a situation. You want to have people, restrained if they need to be restrained and so forth. But one of the things I would always tell somebody, whether they were a victim, whether they were a witness, whether they were a subject that we were arresting, was I would always tell them, listen, I'm going to treat you with respect. I would require that you treat us with respect as well, and everything else can be worked out. You might not like the outcomes. You might be going to jail. You might be being charged with something. But as long as you treat us with respect, you're going to get the respect back. So I've always tried to kind of do that with people. But in my younger years, it was like, anybody that was doing something wrong, I took it personally.
Yeah.
So you can't let yourself do that. You have to just do the job. It's a great job. People say you have the best tickets to the greatest show on earth, and I really believe that. People don't get to do the things that we do or see the things that we see. Some of it's bad, but a lot of it is interesting, and there's a lot of good stuff as well. So you just have to make sure that you do the profession well and treat others with respect and do the job as best you can.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great words of advice. I appreciate your time so much and coming on here and all the things that you're doing in wellness. And thank you.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Yeah. We'll stay in touch for sure.
Okay.